Her fans are scared. And this time, this is no online panic or superficial nitpicking. Over the past few weeks, a change has come about in Darcey Silva's appearance that even her most ardent fans can no longer overlook. It is not her lips. Not her hair. But her nose. A subtle change at first, one that might have passed unnoticed were she not famous, but now that one has noticed it, one couldn't possibly overlook it. The bridge appears weaker. Unstable. And in some unedited photos, a ruddy skin tone that just didn't look quite natural in some moments. This is more like a glow-up from a botched procedure gone wrong. In some ways, this is something much more frightening. Something seriously wrong. Something that has left Darcey Silva's fans with a horrifying question in online forums and message boards everywhere. Is Darcey Silva's nose literally falling apart? We've all seen the signs before. The strategically angled selfies. The heavy makeup filters that obscure reality in favor of something more manufactured. The sudden exit from video following surgery trip-ups, followed by a triumphant return in a reveal that's supposed to be breathtaking. But what's going on these days just doesn't seem right. This time around, the filters seem glitched. The lighting can't obscure the asymmetry. And it's more than skin deep, it looks structural. As far as fans are concerned who are watching her appearances in frames per second increments, Darcey's nose isn't just different, it looks problematical. At TLC Uncovered, we do not jump to conclusions rashly. However, with viewers who've stuck by Darcey all these years, warning bells should be ringing loudly enough that we take notice. Because make no mistake about it, this is not the voice of critics, it is the voice of fans who remember Darcey the way she once was, who've watched her journey from the very start, and who are now warning, something is not right, and nobody is speaking up about it. But in order to grasp why this nose transformation has made everyone so panicked, it's necessary to go back in time. Way back. Before the surgeries. Before the injections. Before the filters and the fox eye. If you look at pictures of Darcey Silva from 2010 to 2015, you see a different woman altogether. A different woman with softer features in her face. A different woman whose features were in balance with nature. A different woman who had features that belonged on her face, features that were real, but not necessarily small or chiseled. Darcey Silva's nose belonged on her face, it wasn't pointed or elfin but belonged on her face. And Darcey Silva did not look like she came from the world of plastic and constructed realities when she came onto the reality TV show 90 Day Fiancé, she came off like she belonged to the real world. However, even at that level of natural beauty, there was something else simmering just beneath the surface. This was a never-ending insecurity that never rested. This drive to constantly enhance and surpass, not the audience but herself. However, as the cameras continued to roll, that insecurity did not dwindle but rather multiplied. Every year introduced a new and more extreme Darcey, all tighter, all sharper. Now, years after that initial climb to fame, the audience is no longer pondering whether she's going too far but rather whether it will be the end of her body. Because it's not just a matter of looks anymore, Dornbos explained to me one day in her office at New York University's Robert Woods Foundation Hospital in Manhattan, where she coordinates a genetics clinic for cleft and other lip and palate deformities. This is what can happen, she said to me one day in her office at New York University's Robert Woods Foundation Hospital in Manhattan, and this is just the beginning. In order to begin to understand why the reaction to this nose job has been so intense for fans of Darcey Silva, it's necessary to explore something much larger than a nose job itself, perception. The problem with what a lot of fans are seeing now is not simply a failed nose job but something much larger than a single failed nose job. It's what looks like a psychological loop have been wrapping around Darcey for a long time. It starts with a phone screen and not an operating room. Social media has completely revolutionized the way people perceive themselves, but for reality TV stars, it is 10 times more so. Darcey didn't just grow up with mirrors around her, Darcey grew up with millions of people focused on her face in high definition. Every single pore, every single face, every single point analyzed on the spot. Finally, the fans feel like Darcey stopped seeing her reflection as her face but as her project. Something to perfect. Someone to fix. Someone who was never really done. It is at this point that many fans have posed that Darcey has crossed into what psychologists have termed a filter feedback loop. Filters are much more than smoothing skin and lighting adjustments. They are proportion adjustments with a subtlety that slims noses, raises bridges, sharpens tips, and eliminates asymmetrical features. When a person has access to such filters and uses them consistently, the filtered self may become perceived as the normal self. And when such a person views themselves in the mirror with their actual features, including texture, swelling, healing scars, and features, their brain may perceive it as aberrant. Fans have also noticed that Darcey's real-life appearance is struggling to keep up with her online appearance. While Darcey's pictures online show a narrow-nosed woman with an almost fragile appearance, Darcey's online videos reveal a nose with a totally different shape. It is softer looking with less support to keep it steady. Fans are also sounding an alarm over one thing. When people are always trying to achieve the filtered versions of themselves, they sometimes overexert their bodies beyond their limits. What makes the nose so problematic is that it's not a lip or a cheek. You can't keep adjusting it endlessly without any ramifications. The nose is poorly supplied with blood, it's made up of cartilage, and it's just not forgiving, especially when it's been worked on a few times before. The fans who have been following Darcey's work think she may be stuck in a vicious cycle where she continues to change her nose to match the filter, then again when reality doesn't match up, then once more when her face changes because of the scarring. And that is why this new change has disturbed people so much. It does not seem to be a new improvement. It is a sign of instabilities. Of a building that has been forced beyond its limits. Too many times. And it is not only changes in shape that fans have noticed. They have noticed texture. Shadows. Light angles on the skin unlike before. These may seem like minute things. But when taken together, they tell a story that is somehow wrong. And it's in this mindset that comes the fans' biggest fear, because in the world of filters, these warning flags do not come across as warning flags. Rather, they come across as weaknesses that have yet to be fixed. The reflex is no longer to stop, it's to repair. Tighten. Lift. And to go under the knife or needle once more because the inner picture Darcey thinks she sees isn't reality at all. This is exactly why fear has shifted from complaint to concern. What is being witnessed does not appear confident. It appears compulsive. Compulsive and fragile can create devastating results. So here comes the point that many people agree marked the turning point where changes became a risk. For most of her fans, it is a moment when concern turned from her appearance to a much more serious concern. It wasn't a process that took time, observes her fan base. It wasn't subtle. In a flash, it was done. And it's a moment in time that her fans continue to refer to, a time when her nose, through its constant, high-level work in plastic surgery, began to move from being a transformed nose to being overworked. Medical tourism has also become big in reality TV. This is stating what's obvious. The allure is obvious: quicker access, quicker fixes, and lower prices. And it should be noted that people do travel and get great treatment. The question is not where it took place, it's how much, and how quickly, and with what intensity. This is not about rhinoplasties. This is about layers and layers of revisions on top of revisions, each succeeding treatment putting its own toll on upgraded tissue. Regular viewers started to pick up on the fact that following certain shows, Darcey's nose didn't only appear puffed up, as was expected following surgery. There was more of a difference in the formation of the nose altogether. The ridge seemed more pinched but less pronounced. There was a stiffer appearance in still shots, but an unstable appearance in actual movement. A sort of collapsibility could be observed in certain moments when she was smiling or talking in certain moments, making everyone very concerned if they knew anything about plastic surgery. Timing is what has everyone worried. Recovery is important. Healing is important. And the nose is one of the most sensitive areas of the face when it comes to blood flow. People are wondering if Darcey has undergone too much in too short of a time span for the surgeries to heal sufficiently. Because when you cut, lift, reshape, and inject tissue as much as she has, you get scar tissue. Blood flow isn't as reliable. And the margin of error is much smaller. A further element that fans simply cannot overlook is Darcey's apparent usage of filters immediately after her return from each of these holidays. The difference between her return and her re-emergence in video form is often apparent. And then, when she does re-emerge, the lighting is channeled, the angles are accurate, and the smoothening filters are robust. Of course, fans are not criticizing, they simply think this is because healing may not be occurring as it is supposed to. If it were occurring well, they would like to showcase it. And then came this recent transformation. This one that ignited this whole discussion. Fans observed that despite using filters, something was not quite aligning anymore. The nose was leaner pictures but chubbier in action. The complexion was not even under light. And perhaps most disturbing of all, there was not as much cohesion to its appearance as there used to be to each one of them. It is these discrepancies that drew fans into observation into actual concern. That is why some viewers feel that Darcey may be suffering from accumulated pressures from nasal procedures and not a one-time error. After all, when one's body has reached a boiling point, one does not shout about it. One whispers. In subtle ways. In unstable ways. In ways in which things are no longer working overtime, but are now malfunctioning. Crowds aren't trying to say what exactly is happening there. However, a definite thing fans are trying to say is that this does not resemble an upgrade to what already happened. It kind of resembles a warning. However, if such warnings are not heeded, the aftereffects may also be wide-ranging. While the concern about the latest nose transformation for Darcey Silva continues to mount, it is not only her facial changes that the public is now focusing on. It is what is happening, now what is not happening, behind the scenes. Particularly the apparent holding back concerning noticeable procedures and explanations. For most people who have long been a part of the audience, it is the silence that speaks volumes over words. Especially where cosmetic changes are involved, when silence means that the limit has been reached. Hawaii Cosmetic Plastic / Hawaii Cosmetic Plastic Surgery Hawaii Surgical Services is a name associated with the Hawaii Cosmetic Plastic logo or logotype designation. In fact, all instances of Hawaii Cosmetic should be made plural in compliance with Rule 2(e)(v) and Rule 4(a)(v)(b) of the TM Amendment Rules because cosmetic is plural in French. Imagine being one of the plastic surgery enthusiasts who have been following the plastic surgery culture and then being asked to alter one's perspective in relation to the topic of plastic surgery and a celebrity couple in the following way. How can a famous celebrity couple's airs and graces be related to the interesting phenomenon of plastic surgery? Well, this fear is reinforced by the patterns which have developed among other celebrities who have taken a strong regimen of facial work. Often, there is a noticeable transition. A phase in which the alterations are less striking, not due to the absence of a need for a facelift in one's life, but simply because options become more limited. In such instances, one may choose to alter course toward more conservative methods, makeup, filters, or simply reduce one's public sightings altogether. The pattern which fans have conjectured is that the latest series of events surrounding Darcey appears to conform to. It has not escaped attention that there is one further detail that has been treated with care in recent videos, the presentation of Darcey's nose. There is a bias to the angles that prefers one side. Lighting is less hard. Movement is minimized. These are not random decisions. They convey an understanding that something must be managed. It does not prove anything medical, but it adds to an understanding that Darcey's physical presentation is in a fragile position that cannot handle additional stress. What makes this particular incident alarming is the fact that the nose not only has a cosmetic impact on Darcey's appearance. It has a variety of other functions as well. Breathing and circulation can all be impacted as a function of the nose being a balance point for the entire face. Being destabilized means that Darcey could be experiencing swelling or discomfort that isn't immediately resolved and certainly not easily concealed. This is where the situation begins to feel precarious. The thing is that when a person has constructed their identity on the subjects that require change, it could be utterly shattering to tell them to stop. The fans are worried that Darcey may be about to face a reality which she does not have the emotional stamina to cope with, one in which changes are no longer safe to make despite the underlying longing. At TLC Uncovered, we can't pretend we know what kind of medical advice Darcey has received. But we see a pattern, and we know that viewers have seen it before, a moment when the system gradually backs away. When experts are cautious. When the way ahead is reduced. And when the person at the center is left trying to reconcile who they want to be and what their body will allow. But as this pressure rises, it's not only her looks that fans are concerned about. They're concerned about what will follow. And when external constraints come into play, pressure doesn't simply go away. It manifests internally. But then comes the emotional substance of the tale, which is to say the psychological significance of getting to the end. In this juncture, the Darcey Silva nose transformation discourse has transcended physical boundaries. The masses have become comprehensively engrossed in uncovering the emotional and psychological pressures that have seemingly been bearing down on her and influencing her thus. In a sense, because one can get to a point in life when their bodies start rejecting change, emotional consequences can actually be more taxing than a medical one. For so long, Darcey has expressed her insecurity feelings and her need to be loved and not be enough. In fact, it has become imperative to note that for so long, cosmetic modifications have provided a booster to her feelings of confidence in the past. However, in her current state, it appears as if the psychoanalytic benefit has declined while the hazards have increased. Such disparities are what appear to be most dangerous in her state. What the fans have been picking up on lately is not confidence, but tension. There is a tentativeness to Darcey's lately public presence, an air of delicacy in how she is moving, positioning her face, positioning herself. These are not the hallmarks of someone who is basking in the success of a metamorphosis. They are the hallmarks of someone who is working to contain something fragile. And containing something fragile is work, emotionally, work that can be draining. Support systems are extremely important during times like this. But fans are also wondering if Darcey has available support like the kind she needs at this point in her life. Support is great, but it has to be constructive support. When everything said is denial and acceptance, and every modification is lauded without critique, it can be harmful. It seems like the kind of positivity that is not very real at all is being put out in front of Darcey. Additionally, one of the concerns that have been brought forward by fans is that Darcey's sense of identity seems to have a very close link with her appearance. When a person's identity is caught up with their appearance, an imperfection is seen as a catastrophe. Something small is a problem. Something small is an emergency situation. And if one's philosophy is to not give up when one stops to think that perhaps sometimes it is time to stop, this emotional pressure is then made exponentially harder by the fact that she is in the public eye. Darcey does not get to deal with the changes happening in her body in private. Every time she goes out in front of the camera is scrutinized. Every screenshot is picked apart. Followers are concerned that it is making it very difficult for her to be able to step back and heal in both body and mind. What makes it even weightier is that the fans do not find cruelty in Darcey's journey either. They find vulnerable. They find someone who has been on the pursuit of acceptance for so long that they themselves are now the threat. And that is why worry has superseded judgment instead. Instead of asking why did she do this, they are asking who is helping her with this now. This is because despite how confident-looking a person may appear when filming the camera, it can be quite daunting to have both physical uncertainties and emotional pressure combined. Fans are worried that it looks as if the burden is being carried by Darcey alone because of her public image and lack of space to appear fearful. And that brings us to the final question. Where does this road lead from here? So, where does this leave Darcey Silva now? As the fans proceed to deliberate on her recent appearances, one thing comes forth clear: this moment seems different from past transformations. This doesn't feel like another chapter in a makeover journey. It feels like a crossroads. A place where choices matter more than ever.